Hello and welcome to Input Output, your read-write side cast. My name is Brendan, and with me, as always, is Sam. What's going on, Sam?
Oh, not too much. It's real hot. I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's nice out,
Yeah, it's amazing.
but I'm not leaving my
window.
house ever.
Sorry?
I'm not leaving my house ever.
I opened the windows, which is kind of like leaving the house.
Yeah. Well, I did that last week. It was warm enough last week to do that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, our weather's been all over the place.
So, last episode of Read Write was real good. We're looking forward to the next one with Lucas coming up. What else we got on the docket, Sam?
Over the horizon, the next read write is going to be Black Company, right?
Yep. That will be the book we do after The Dispossessed by Glenn Cook.
Yeah, and it's, I think, fairly well known, but I certainly haven't read it. I know a couple people who have, and they all said it was really good.
Yeah, I know Glenn Cook in general. I'm trying to remember what I know him from, but I might just know his name.
Know him from, like, IRL?
I wish I knew him on IRL. He lives in St. Louis, though.
Oh, that's a little bit far away.
Yeah, just a little.
I've been watching some streams lately, but that's kind of all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when do you not watch streams?
I mean, if I'm not on my computer, I can't be watching a stream.
I don't know. I sometimes watch my streams at work.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's what Twitch app's for, right?
Oh, I wish I had infinite data.
Just quick stop in, say hi, jump back out.
Yeah, I have actually opened up the chat and stopped the video and just been in the chat before.
Oh yeah, there's a chat only mode on the mobile app, so you can actually just have only the chat up, which is nice.
Yeah, so I was watching a stream, or I've been watching a lot of streams of some more current adventure type games. The thing I was watching was two different streamers playing through a game called Night in the Woods, which is, right. And it was interesting because each of them had a very different experience through it, because they chose to speak to different people and kind of explore different parts of the game.
Yeah, that seems neat. Like tandem adventuring.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot to the way the designers put it all together, that you can have multiple playthroughs that are almost completely different and yet still converge at a similar or the same spot.
Yeah, I get you.
I feel like there's a wave of good adventure games in the last couple years.
Well, there's a wave of adventure games. Whether all of them are good or not is a different story.
Well, there's a good
Broken Age.
Yeah, there's a subset that are really good. Like, there's tons of just adventure games out there, but not every single one is something you'd want to pay for or even play.
So let's start off by talking about what are we considering an adventure game in this context?
I have a fairly open definition, and it usually is a game that's more about exploration, about investigation, than it is about combat or driving or something like that. So It doesn't necessarily have to be a point and click kind of thing like King's Quest or Monkey Island, but
yeah, because I'm a huge fan of point and click adventure games in general. But for example, do we consider something like The Witcher to be an adventure game?
It has adventure elements, but The Witcher I would put more under the RPG banner.
Yeah, no, it's totally an RPG for sure. But where do you draw that line?
I think when the primary emphasis of the game is on the exploration more than anything else.
Because in a lot of ways, I kind of think about point and click adventure games as like an RPG light.
Yeah, I guess they kind of are in a lot of ways, although usually they kind of exclude the stat-based elements that you're going to see in a traditional RPG.
Yeah, I suppose. There's elements of that for sure, but it's one of those things where you have your inventory, you have a character who you're playing and interacting through the story, you have dialogue options like you do in a role-playing game. There's a lot of things going on that I feel like are very much in tandem with what a role-playing game is trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, it's certainly not a hard line, but I was talking, I guess, more about your Gone Homes or your Everyone's Gone to the Rapture kind of things.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I consider Gone Home to be an adventure game.
You don't think so?
But I don't know how else to define it.
I certainly would put it in, like, as well as being an adventure game, kind of. I want to call it more like a interactive narrative.
Yeah, see, like that's kind of where I go with it. It's more of an experience than anything.
Which is cool, but if you look at, again, like those archetypes, like Monkey Island,
Yeah.
there's only one plot that you can go through in that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're basically you're gated by the puzzles, and then as you solve those, you kind of unlock the next component of the story, and you can interact in the little dialogue things, but there's not a lot of options usually in that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the game, because certain ones do a lot better with giving you options for story. For example, I know a lot more of the recent Telltale games have been doing a lot with that, with giving you choice.
That's true. Yeah, those Telltale games are very much the modern inheritors of that point-and-click adventure, even though they're not 2D.
Honestly, they're kind of like they were kind of the bridge, right? Like in those years between sort of like the late 90s and the late 2000s, they were kind of the only company really putting out a lot of adventure games.
Yeah, I mean, I have to do a little more research than the none that I've done on that, but I feel like, they put out a lot of games and the majority of them are very good. But you're right.
But I'm just thinking of like, between 2004-ish and 2009, for example, they put out, I think, 4 to 7 different game series, because they put out a couple Sam and Maxes. They put out the Strong Bad games. They put out that Monkey Island remake. I'm not sure what year that was.
I thought that was pretty recent.
Maybe it was. Maybe I'm getting that one confused. But I'm pretty sure the Strong Bad one was like 06, because it was around when they put out the original Poker Night at the Inventory.
Oh yeah, you're right. The Monkey Island Special Edition is 2009.
Okay, cool. So it was later than I thought, but not as late as you thought, which is fine. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Telltale fan. Like, I've been a Telltale fan for many, many years, and I own pretty much every game they have on Steam. Like, pretty close.
That must be a lot. That's like in the dozens.
Yeah, I think I'm just missing some of their really modern stuff. Like, I'm missing the Batman game. I'm missing The Walking Dead. And I'm missing... there was a new one that came out that I don't have as well.
Yeah, I don't remember after the Batman ones what the most recent one they made was.
Oh, I don't have the Game of Thrones one. Or the Minecraft one.
I should look at that Game of Thrones one, because I know that when they're working with these properties, they don't necessarily make them identical to, like, the TV show.
Well, that was the whole point of the Walking Dead one, right? Like, you literally don't play anybody from the series. It's like a standalone story.
Yeah, it's an entirely separate narrative, whole different characters, different place.
Yeah, even The Wolf Among Us, which was their kind of like first, maybe not their first, but like I guess their second. Not even that. I don't know what I'm saying now. The Wolf Among Us was a property game based on the Fables games, right? From DC Comics. And that one was an entirely new story. Like, it has nothing to do with the comics as well.
Oh, I thought it was based on, based on one of the first ones, one of the first comics in that series.
Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't think so, because I've read most of Fables and it didn't seem that.
Oh, I haven't read any of them, so the plot seemed similar enough to like a summary that I read, and I guess I just assumed it was actually that.
Yeah, but then they give you like The Wolf Among Us is known. I haven't played it yet. I'm planning on playing it for my anniversary stream coming up, but it's known for having choice, where you can affect the story based on what you choose.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other distinctive and memorable thing that's come from that is character X will remember this.
Yeah, for sure. I just know there's like sequences where you can like assault characters and like all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh, in Wolf Among Us, absolutely. Bigby assaults pretty much everyone.
So officially speaking, I'm missing 6 of the Telltale games available on Steam.
6 out of how many?
Give me one sec here. 6 out of 54.
Oh my god. That's a lot of games. A lot
and
of
I've played
adventure.
a significant amount of them, too.
That's like That's almost probably 1,000 hours worth of games.
Yeah, well, I mean, the old, like the 6-part games, so like the old Sam and Maxes and all that, are a lot shorter in general. They're not as long as, say, The Walking Dead, for example. But yeah, it's a lot of time for sure. But I love them. I love what they do.
Yeah, well, they really do a good job.
Yeah, the amount of hours I put into like Poker Night of the Inventory, which is not an adventure game per se, but is just so intelligently written. Like the dialogue is great for everything, and they have all those cool characters from different mediums. Like the first game had Strong Bad Heavy from Team Fortress, Max from Sam and Max, and who is the other guy that was in it? Oh, Tycho from Penny Arcade.
That's such a weird mashup.
Oh no, sorry, not Gabe from Penny Arcade, but still Penny Arcade. And then the second one had Ash Williams, David Warbucks, his character from the Venture Bros, Brock Samson.
Oh man,
Sam from Sam and Max, Claptrap from Borderlands, and GLaDOS from Portal 2 is the dealer.
That's amazing.
And she just makes fun of you the entire time.
I want to see one of those games, but it's all rogue guys from different games. So GLaDOS and Shodan and like Icarus from Deus Ex. Or
that'd be interesting. That would totally be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what would they even do? They're so defined by their hatred of people that they just kind of sit around like, oh, you hate humans too? Yeah, me too. Same.
Yeah, I wonder how that would go down.
They just start like trading human recipes.
Trading human recipes. Do they eat humans though?
I don't know. They don't have to eat them to cook them.
Well, that's true. The coolest part about Telltale is I saw a job posting for them once for a senior narrative designer, and they are super open to your resume as a writer. Like, they didn't require you to have games experience. They didn't require you to have like any sort of specific thing. Their whole deal was just like, if you can write and well and consistently, we want you.
That makes a lot of sense, because basically they're making like choose your own adventures, just with pictures as well, moving pictures.
Yeah. Oh, they still have postings for it. Cool.
Well, maybe you should apply.
Yeah, now that I actually have like a real thing.
Yeah. Get something published and then apply to that, and then...
Oh, you don't need to. You just need to have consistent work that showcase cinematic script writing.
Oh.
They don't want pros.
No,
like, literally, they say that, not pros. It's just nice to see, because a lot of game writing positions are kind of like this. Like, you have to have written 3 AAA titles in order to be even considered. How do you get a AAA title writing credit under your belt?
It's the old catch-22 that, you know, you need experience to get the job, but you can't get experience without doing the job, but they won't hire you because you don't have experience.
Exactly, right? That whole thing. So you gotta find a way to get experience. I know in comics, a big thing is using independent comics, like self-publishing comics, in order to get a professional gig. Like, so to get into Marvel or DC, for example, one of the best ways is to write a really good independent comic that will get your foot in the door to have a conversation.
Well, that makes sense. It's having a portfolio, something to show.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just walk in with your hand out and say, "Hey, hire me." I got nothing nothing to show you that I'm any good, but trust me.
I mean, they should.
They should definitely do that. Yeah, so
I'm perfect for this job. God damn it. Well, they're just like pluses: experience with tools such as game engines, interactive fiction systems, non-linear video editing, Flash, etc. Any exposure to computer programming, television writing and story development experience. Like, this is all stuff I studied in school. I do for my stream. Like, this is things I do.
Yeah, it sounds like they made it specifically for you.
Yeah, I might actually consider applying for this.
That'd be pretty great. I mean, you said the same thing about that WWE writing post.
Yeah, but I've looked at this job posting for like 4 years.
They've had the same job posting up for 4 years.
To be honest, no, they have 2 now. They have an associate writer and a senior writer, so I would probably be more of the associate writer type right now, because the senior writer is like a team leader sort of thing. So I don't think I'm as good at that.
Well, yeah, and I don't think you just walk into the senior position.
Yeah. Well, you probably could if you'd done it before, like if you had like been in a writer's room for a television series or something. I think they're kind of like Double Fine in that they just kind of have open postings because they're a company that's always working on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you always need new ideas and new people to bring that kind of fresh blood into the system.
Yeah, so they're kind of always open, like always have jobs up, no matter whether they sort of need it or not, just to see what they can bring to the table. Like they'll make a spot for you if you're good, sort of thing. I feel like.
That's interesting.
But you know, they've released what, like 6 games in the last year.
Yeah, they're turning into a pretty gargantuan studio. One of these like Ubisoft that has 35,000 employees or something.
Yeah, because they released 2 Walking Dead games, the Batman game, all in 2016.
I got to look at those Batman games some more. So many of those voice actors are people from like Critical Role, so it's kind of freaky listening to them do those Batman voices.
Yeah, and they have Kevin Conroy voicing Batman in it, and Kevin Conroy is the best Batman voice in my opinion.
Yeah,
he's the guy who did Arkham Asylum. He was the animated series guy. Like he's the guy.
Well, it's easy. I mean, anyone can do a Batman voice.
Yeah, do a Batman voice.
Here, watch this. I am Batman. There.
Yeah, that's not Kevin Conroy, though.
No, that's my Batman. I wasn't trying to be Kevin Conroy as Batman.
That's Christian Bale Batman. That's not good Batman.
It was my Batman. I invented that separately and independently of any other performer.
I see how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever tell you that my friend Kevin was really good friends with Christian Bale in like a online forum way back in the day before he got famous?
No, what forum was this?
I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I asked him once, and I can't remember what he told me. But yeah, like the guy sent him like signed photos and stuff when he started getting big and like things like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Christian Bale is a goon from Something Awful. I can see it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not impossible.
No, it's definitely not impossible. It's just one of those things that like we're starting to see that with Twitch, right? Like these actual like super awesome pros who just want to show stuff and talk about stuff.
Cool.
Like professional concept artists and professional video game 3D artists that do Twitch in their spare time for practice.
And it even kind of goes the other way. The people who get popular on YouTube then go and kind of get into the mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, who was I? There was someone the other day that I was just like, oh my God, like you're famous from outside and you're on Twitch now.
Everyone just wants to, hang out and show off the stuff they're good at.
Yeah, well, I think it's just that type of community, right? Like that sort of, hey, come show us cool things. We'll like it. We'll enthuse. We'll have conversations. I mean, that's part of why I stream, right? Like,
it's
have conversations.
Yeah, it's interestingly similar to one of the conversations that happens in The Dispossessed when they're talking about why do people do certain forms of labor, and he says, or the main character says, like, it's because it's fun to do and it's nice to show people stuff that you're good at, and other people appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we really can have that space anarchist utopia.
Space anarchist utopia.
Yeah.
One day, Sam. One day we'll be cool.
One day I'll move to space. And you know what? Actually, that day is potentially not as far off as we would have thought. I don't know how much you keep track of any of the SpaceX or space-related stuff at all.
I just let you rave to me about it.
Oh, it's so cool. Elon Musk.
Save me the effort.
Send me to space, Elon Musk. So yeah, last week, I think it was last week, maybe a little further back than that, SpaceX relaunched a rocket, or a first stage rocket that they had previously fired and recovered. I mean, the fact that, they can recover these rockets at all, that they land on their own, is amazing enough, but that they can refurbish them and relaunch them is kind of insane and not even close to something that anyone ever done before. And kind of the scariest part of the whole thing is how blasé it's all become, because this isn't the first one that they recovered. Like, oh, they've done 5 or 6 of those, whatever, just another rocket landing. This particular rocket they fired off little less than a year ago, and they've been refurbishing it ever since. And it means a lot in terms of access to space, because the cost of putting something into orbit, is huge. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. And this could potentially, being able to reuse this first stage could potentially save in the tens of millions of dollars. So like somewhere between 20 and 40% cost reduction to put something into orbit.
Yeah.
And interestingly, no one else can really compete. Like Blue Origin, which is Richard Branson's company, his space company. Or no, sorry, that's Virgin Galactic. I'm thinking of Jeff Bezos, which is he's the Amazon guy in Blue Origin. They've launched and recovered some rockets, but not ever doing an actual mission. Whereas the one that they relaunched and recovered again actually performed a mission each time. Like they put satellites into orbit.
Well, doesn't SpaceX provide all the supplies to the ISS? Don't they have a contract for that?
They do have a contract to deliver supplies. It's not exclusive. They've done it a couple times. I think 2 times. One of which exploded on the launch pad, which is unfortunate.
It happens.
Well, so that's kind of the thing, is that with most other companies, with the United Launch Alliance, which is the main American like defense contractor amalgam that builds rockets for the American government, for NASA primarily, their rockets explode like 1 in 100 or 150 launches. SpaceX is like 1 in 10.
Oh, damn.
But SpaceX is, trying a lot more stuff. Every single launch is an experiment.
They're trying to innovate, whereas that other stuff is just like, we're just going to send rockets up to do this thing.
Yeah, the ULA priority is consistency, not innovation.
Yeah,
and
whereas Elon
matters.
Musk is trying to colonize Mars.
Well, yeah, he certainly
explicitly.
He said that, absolutely. His famous quote, "I want to die on Mars, just not on impact."
Yeah, dying on impact would suck.
Hell, at least you got there. No one else can say that so far.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so SpaceX, pretty exciting. I don't know what else is new and crazy out there. Have you watched any of... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to think of any space stuff that I had heard about recently, and there wasn't much.
Well, I mean, they seem to be... And actually, this is another thing that's kind of become blasé because it happens so often, but they found... or they think they found a bunch of planets orbiting another sun that's relatively nearby. I think it was like 30 or 40 light years away, quote-unquote, nearby.
I saw a thing about that. I didn't read it, though.
Yeah, it's interesting how common it appears planets are. Because, there's been lots of competing theories about whether most stars have planets or only a small select number. And it kind of looks like now, the more we look around, that most stars have planets, which has other implications. Because, the more planets there are, the more planets with atmospheres, the more planets with atmospheres that are comparable to ours and in temperature and composition and all that stuff means there's a ever increasing likelihood that there's other alien life out there, whether it be, something like animal sized or just bacteriological.
Yeah.
But the reporting of it is not great, because...
Yeah, well, it's not explicitly all that interesting to report about as a science writer who has done it.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually just that it's kind of... The information is kind of distorted. Like, they said they found a month or 2 ago a solar system that had like 5 or 6 planets that could potentially be in that habitable band. But what the article didn't bother to mention was that it's a tiny like red dwarf. So all the planets were super close, like inside the orbital equivalent of where Mercury is in our solar system, which means that all those planets were probably tidally locked, which means that one side of them always faces the sun and the other always faces away. Kind of like our moon to us.
Yeah, no, I got you.
So the obvious problem with that is that one side is going to be super hot and the other side is going to be super cold.
So what you're saying is the Chronicles of Riddick is what you're saying.
Oh, that actually, yeah, the in those
that
movies,
Prison Planet.
Well, I didn't think that one was totally tidally locked. It was just a very, very long day, right? Like multiple years long.
Yeah, it was. Well, not so much that it was years long, because it wasn't. It was that when it was exposed to the sun, it was so hot, and your window was so short to travel the distance from where the prison was to like an actual safe space that you had to be almost superhuman to do it.
Oh, I'm thinking of Pitch Black, the first
Oh
one.
no. No, I was talking about the Chronicles of Riddick, the movie,
Right.
because there's that prison planet, which like one side is like burning hot and the other side is like really really cold. So you got to stay in the section that's like right in between them.
Yeah, you
to
have
survive on the planet's surface.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of like potential problems with that. Like you can. It depends on what the differential is in the temperature, because at the best you're going to have crazy winds due to the super high pressure system that's going to be on the sun facing side and the super low pressure system that's going to be on the opposite side. And I mean, if it's cold enough on the side that's facing away from the planet, or from the sun, I mean, then like your atmosphere might just freeze out and completely precipitate, and then you're going to be left with just a pile of solid or liquid oxygen on the dark side and nothing, no actual gas floating around on the light side.
I got you. I don't think it was a problem because in the movie, and movie physics aside, but when you got exposed to the sun side, they literally burst into flames.
Was that Chronicles of Riddick, or was that the newer one?
No, that was Chronicles of Riddick. The newer one was much more temperate of a planet.
Oh yeah, no, you're right, actually. Yeah, I remember that. It's been a while since I watched Chronicles, but that's a pretty good movie.
I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't like it for whatever reason.
It's not as good as Pitch Black, and it's not as good as the third one, the name of which I can't remember.
See, and even more people hate the third one.
That's really weird.
It was just called Riddick, I think.
Yeah, that's
if I'm
right.
not mistaken. Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I thought the love story was kind of stupid.
Well, it's Hollywood, so they gotta shoehorn that in somewhere.
Yeah. But everything else was pretty solid in my opinion. Though, that being said, it was very much sort of a repackaging of Pitch Black.
Oh yeah, it was completely the same thing, but like better, just better production value, better actors. Yeah, so I mean, have you watched any of Iron Fist, speaking of things that were not well received?
I have not. I am very far behind on my Marvel Netflix series. I haven't actually finished Jessica Jones yet.
Yeah, definitely watch Jessica Jones first.
I think you
better.
have to watch them in order. I think you have to watch them in broadcast order or release order, because they kind of, it's not like super big spoilers or anything, but I feel like there's an interconnectedness that really benefits from watching them in order.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot that kind of informs one to the next, and there's characters that carry through the different series.
Yeah, so I got to watch Jessica Jones, then Daredevil season 2, then Luke Cage,
Yep.
then Iron Fist.
Yeah, and you know, I just finished watching the last Iron Fist episode yesterday, and you know, it was okay. It wasn't bad. It was still a lot better than most stuff that's on TV. So I just generally don't understand why so many people were, it seemed like, actively mad at it. It's not as good as Daredevil or Jessica Jones, but it was still better than most stuff that's on TV.
Well, I just think it's one of those things that it's all a matter of perspective, right? Like, like we're cool with comparing it to like a sitcom or whatever on TV, but a lot of people want to see the same quality of Daredevil and want to see the same quality of Jessica Jones. And if it's not quite there, then they're like, "Oh, it's not as good. I'm disappointed."
I don't know. I guess there's just so little really good stuff out there that even something that's a little bit above your kind of average quality, I'm willing to accept.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's one of those things that I was talking about this the other day with people in this crazy topic about like accepting bad games or accepting broken games as products. But it's like we can't know what's a bad game until we played a good game, because we have no frame of reference.
I think it's possible to spot a bad game without having played an amazing game. Like if you're not having fun or if it doesn't make any sense, then I think you can kind of label that bad without necessarily knowing exactly what you think would be
Fair
good or
enough.
perfect.
But I guess the argument that we were talking about was more of a subtle quality judgment in terms of like, for example, why we liked Riddick versus other people not liking Riddick, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like there's parts of that opinion that's informed by something. I make the example of Myst, right? Myst back in the day, everyone loved that game. We play that game today, it's kind of garbage when it comes to controls and stuff. But the things that it excels at are the things that are the compelling parts, like the interactivity and the story and the way that world is built. So those elements are there, and those definitely hold up. But I'm just saying, like, there's parts of the design of that game that don't make any sense today. But they had no frame of reference for those design elements that we now do.
Yeah, I mean, everything builds on everything that came before. And they were just working with so much cruder technology.
Yep, for sure. Like, all of the technical limitations they had for making that work. Like, it's crazy. I watched this awesome documentary about video game soundtracks that was screamed at a game dev conference I went to last year. And it was fascinating to hear all these really cool composers talk about, like, working on arcade soundtracks with, like, they got 8 MIDI channels and one of them had to be used for sound effects.
Yeah,
but
working
if you were
those...
but if you were smart, you could actually sneak certain sounds into the sound effects layer, like to bolster extra things when the sounds weren't playing and stuff, if you did it properly and programmed it right.
Oh yeah,
like all this cool weird hidden stuff.
There were so many tricks that they could pull back in the day, like whether it be arcade cabinets or even like the really early Nintendo systems and that kind of era, that 8-bit era.
Yeah, but they're basically working with like a very, very small sound card.
Yeah, the number of games like Mega Man or something that you play, and when you shoot your blaster, just part of the music drops out because it doesn't have enough channels to support all of the instrumentation plus your sound effects.
Yep, totally.
It's pretty impressive to hear the stuff that they condense down into those games, into the music. Almost, well, maybe a little bit more so even than the kind of crazy way that they do the sprites.
That's intense too.
Yeah, the whole layering and the little components that sometimes would flash in and out. So if your TV doesn't work at a certain frame rate, like things just become invisible.
Yeah, which we see a lot nowadays when people try to play retro games or are doing like speed runs and stuff, where you're using that to your advantage, or you have to play on a specific type of TV or game console, like PAL, the difference between PAL versus NTSC games and stuff like that.
There's some really cool stuff out there explaining the hardware basis for those differing frame rates.
Yeah.
What's amazing now about a lot of these games is they have so much ability to deliver fixes after the software is delivered, whereas back then it had to be perfect or as close to perfect as they could get when they shipped it, because that was it. It was printed on hardware and completely disconnected from anything. Whereas now, they can sell something on Steam or on a game console like an Xbone or a PS4, and down the line, when they find problems, they can patch them out and just download it from the internet, and boom, suddenly your whole thing is different.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things that just leads more into that debate of, like, is it acceptable for a game to be patched on day one?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who get upset about that. I get it. Software now is so huge. Like, even DLCs are in the multiple gigs.
Well, part of it, the thing I always consider is, how hard it is to test things. Like, testing is an extremely difficult thing. And no matter how much testing you do, when you release it to hundreds of millions of people, it's going to be different. Yeah,
all the different potential hardware setups that are impossible to test for. All the ways that people mess with these the systems that they're shipped just because they can. Yep.
Bad subroutines that just don't survive outside of, like, the testing build. Like, it just, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and I know I play a lot of Paradox games, and they're pretty legendary for patching additional stuff in, like even after the release for free. And a lot of people have pretty divergent opinions on that. There's certainly the camp that believes that basically they ship an unfinished product and then slowly over the next year deliver you all the components that they wished were in the game and just couldn't finish.
The thing that I always consider about that kind of thing is budget. It's not something that people really think about all that much. It actually gets dismissed a lot, I think, in this sort of debate where people are like, "Oh, well, they're a AAA studio that makes millions of dollars a year. How could they not afford it?" Well, spending an additional 6 weeks of programming time is expensive. Like, that's hundreds of programmers you're potentially paying for 6 weeks of time. Like, and the average programmer makes what, $75,000 a year?
Something like that, yeah.
US, I think. I think it's $75,000 US.
And it's not like they have a continuous revenue stream, right? They work for 2, 3, 4 years on a game, and if they're not a huge studio, they have no income during that period. They're working on the money they made from the last thing, potentially, or whatever the investor's money is. Yep. So, once you run out of cash, that's it. You have to release the game, hopefully turn that into a revenue stream.
Well, that's what happened with Duke Nukem Forever, right?
Ugh.
Like, that studio basically almost shut down 3 times.
Oh yeah, I mean, they didn't turn out too good.
Well, they were also so slow that technology kept evolving, and that just every time technology evolved, they had to adapt and change, and that just meant starting from scratch.
Yeah, they changed engines, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, well, they had to, because by the time that they had done enough on one engine, it was already obsolete.
And it really showed in the final product, because that
game was not good.
The jokes that were 8 or 10 years old, and kind of you had to stop and think back when Duke Nukem has his witty quip about some ancient meme.
Yeah, exactly. It's suffered because of it. It's kind of a coup that they released it at all, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a miracle, an awful miracle, not the kind of miracle you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, controversial opinions. Duke Nukem Forever was bad.
Yeah, I didn't play it. I couldn't.
I think I only played maybe half and then just stopped, which is rare. I almost never just stop playing a game.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of person either. I tend to finish at least the story part of the game.
This thing, I think I got to the part you got to drive a monster truck through the desert, and it's the physics of it are so awful, and every, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes you have to stop, get out of the truck, and have a bad Serious Sam battle. The pacing was just all over the place, and they just had no idea what they were trying to make.
Yeah.
Oh, and even they made a terrible, not Mass Effect, that other game with the Space Marine in the green armor, the Spartan boy.
Doom.
No, not Doom. The Xbox one.
Oh, Halo.
Yeah, Halo. You make Duke Nukem finds the Spartan armor and makes some bad joke about it, looks like this guy didn't make it to cover for his health to regenerate. Yet they are using a regenerating health system in the game. They're just completely unself-aware.
Well, that just sounds like they wrote it years ago when they didn't have it, and then they eventually implemented it because that's what the games at the time were doing.
Oh, absolutely. But it kind of indicated the overall quality of the game, that all these different parts were so completely disconnected.
What year did that come out? What Halo were we on?
Duke Nukem Forever?
Yeah, by the time that came out. That must have been around Halo 4, right? Or Reach? Was it being around Reach?
Duke Nukem Forever came out in 2011?
That would have been Reach, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm not a Halo expert, but I think that would have been Reach. Because I think ODST was 2000... Or was ODST first? ODST was first.
Was it?
Before Reach.
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know. I stopped playing everything after 3, so I don't know. Mostly because, yeah, I just stopped buying Xbox games after that point.
I've never played a Halo.
Oh, no?
I've played 15 minutes of multiplayer with someone,
I actually think you'd like the first one.
I don't know. It wasn't that great. I don't really play that
I
many
thought the
first-person
first one
games.
had like the most compelling story to it, in my opinion, of the like 2 or 3 I played. But
Well, when was that released? That came out in
2001.
2001. Holy crap. Yeah, so it's ancient.
I have an old disc of it if you want it.
What am I going to do with that?
That's a good question.
I have nothing that plays a disc, let
I
alone
don't
an Xbox.
either anymore. It's on Steam, I think.
Oh, it's definitely on Steam.
Yeah,
Actually,
because it was like when games for Windows like first came out.
yeah.
If you
Well,
remember
it was
that.
one of the launch titles for that. It was one of the draws.
Yeah.
Did I tell you when Chris came over? For the listeners, my friend Chris brought a Blu-ray over to my place and is like, "Okay, we'll just put this in the Blu-ray player." And it's like, "Yeah, I don't have one." It's like, "Oh, well, we'll just put it in a game console." No, I don't have one of those either. And he's like, "Oh, how do you watch anything?" I was like, "I download it from the internet. I watch it on the computer. You know, the computer there that's plugged into my TV."
Which you never use.
Which I never use. Yeah, that was the first time in a year that I've turned that computer on and it bricked itself. It was great. Thanks, Windows.
Well, I mean, that's what you get for not turning a computer on for like a year.
That thing was also incredibly old.
Yeah.
Like it's probably 8 years old at this point. Still, I think it's got a Core 2 quad processor in there.
Yeah.
And that was the Final Fantasy movie that I ended up just buying on YouTube because it was $15 or something. And that was a surprisingly good movie, considering that it was like a video game tie-in and it was all CGI.
I like the Final Fantasy movies, actually. All of them, including Spirits Within, which I know sounds blasphemous to most people, but
Wow,
I actually
yeah.
really like that movie.
Hot takes.
People don't like that movie.
It's not a great movie.
It's one of those movies that like it's kind of sits in this weird middle space between like people who don't like video games won't like it, and people who like Final Fantasy won't like it.
Yeah, well, it didn't feel in any way connected to the franchise that it was nominally connected to.
I personally thought it did, but that might have been a stretch on my part. I just felt like thematically it dealt with a lot of the same things that a Final Fantasy movie deals with, or like a Final Fantasy game deals with.
I think that's just not what people were looking for. They expected there to be some kind of like interconnectedness with the games themselves. Like it was going to be a movie of a game, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like it's like one of those things where like the Final Fantasy fans hate it, but like people who aren't into anime and or like Final Fantasy casually don't like it either because it's just weird.
Yeah, it was really odd.
I like that movie a lot. Like a lot.
Well, I mean, I guess there has to be someone.
Yeah, the weird video game nerd who like doesn't really like Final Fantasy enough to really care that it's different, and likes anime enough that I'm not bothered by the anime-ness of it.
Well, and that was something I felt that the Kingsglaive movie did really well. It didn't really feel like an anime movie at first. Like it kind of eases you into that. It starts as just a regular kind of action movie.
Interesting.
Except for the giant monsters. There were some giant monsters at the very beginning.
Have you ever seen Advent Children? Final Fantasy VII Advent Children?
I don't think so.
So that was the other movie that they kind of released. I know they've had a couple of like anime TV shows and like some stuff, but like the other real big movie was Advent Children, and Advent Children was basically like this weird sequel to Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, interesting.
All CGI. It's done in that engine that they're doing the remake for Final Fantasy VII in.
Oh, when was
like
this
that?
It's in the same engine. It was released in 2005.
Yeah, it is the same engine. Well, maybe they've updated the engine. I'm not sure, but it was the one they remember they released that tech demo at E3 one time of like the opening sequence, the opening cinematic
to the new remake or to this movie.
So when the PlayStation 4 was coming out, or PlayStation 3, I think. Yeah, it would have been PlayStation 3. They released this remade cinematic at E3 as a tech demo.
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, so they released this tech demo, which was a redone version of the opening sequence of Final Fantasy VII in a new engine, and then they used that engine to make like the game, to make the movie.
Interesting. Oh, I'm seeing, yeah, a new version. Cool.
Yeah,
It's fascinating that you can import
so here
those
we go.
assets into an.
2005 E3 convention. They released a video using the PlayStation 3 to demonstrate the PlayStation 3's graphical capabilities.
Well, they had a lot more hardware there all of a sudden, so being able to just slap those old assets into a new updated engine and throw some shaders at it, that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and that came out in September 2005. So they were kind of using the same tech to do it.
Interesting.
But yeah, I thought that was a really solid movie. But it's kind of like this weird, like it's like a getting the gang back together sort of film, which is both weird and interesting.
I think it's probably the same as the newer one, or the newer one's the same as that, in as much as it's meant to bridge certain things and get you familiar with the environment again.
Yeah, probably. I can't speak much to that because I don't really know, because I never really played the entirety of Final Fantasy VII. Actually, I don't think I've played the entirety of any Final Fantasy game.
Wow.
Well, I didn't own a console as a kid, so like I never played many of them because I didn't own them on PC either.
It's time to get some emulators.
Yeah,
Play like Final Fantasy VI.
I actually think I own a couple of them on Steam now.
I'm not a big fan of the remakes, honestly. I like the original art, and
well, I'm talking about like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 mostly.
Okay.
Which they didn't really remake when they released them on Steam.
No. Well, 4 and 6, which were the ones that I played the most of on Super Nintendo, the remakes looked completely different and were really not good. Like, they just completely changed the visual style of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they did that sort of like, they wanted to update it to like the overall anime-esque look that they had going in the later ones.
Yeah, and they definitely were trying to sell them for mobile, so they changed a lot of stuff to fit.
I forgot about the mobile thing.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy VI one.
Stupid expensive.
Oh yeah, they were messing around. Hell, okay, I'm looking at Steam right now. Final Fantasy VI is still $22.50.
Yeah,
that's insane.
You got to get them in a sale because like they're mad expensive and they don't drop in price.
Well, like, how can you sell a 20-plus-year-old game for that much money?
Fantasy.
Yeah, no, it's 1994 that this came out.
It's not as bad as Games Workshop, but it's still pretty bad.
Games Workshop, at least, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Their shit is crazy expensive.
Well, I wasn't talking so much about the models, but like their game licenses and stuff is like all the DLC, and it's all expensive.
Yeah, it really is. I wonder if they fixed bugs. I mean, that's one thing that's going for these re-releases. Again, Final Fantasy VI, which I'm looking at, there was a bug in the Nintendo release in the cart that meant that one of your stats that was supposed to be connected to all sorts of combat mechanics just wasn't. Like, there was a typo, so it wasn't factored into the calculations.
Yeah, I think they fixed a lot of that stuff.
And I know there's mods that fix that and don't alter the graphics. I should say like emulator mods.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't played that many emulator mods. I don't really play emulator all that much.
Well, because of the way Steam works these days, you really don't need to. So much stuff is available legitimately, and with the exception of these crazy 25-year-old games that are still over $20, most of it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's also a matter of like, I find that unlike film to a certain extent and maybe some other mediums, games don't age the same way that those other stuff does. Like they don't. They take hits much easier with evolving technologies. And so like it becomes less relevant to play an old game nowadays than it does to watch like an Alfred Hitchcock film, for example.
I can see that to a certain extent. I still think there's plenty of original Nintendo games, like any of the maybe not any of the Mega Man games, but Mega Man like 1 and 3. I'd still play that.
I'm not saying the games are bad or like aren't worth putting time in if you want to. I'm just saying that like, would I rather play the next Telltale game or play a Super Nintendo game? Which one's going to be more relevant to me as a gamer and as a writer? Like,
I'd play the Nintendo game.
Over a Telltale game, really?
Yeah.
I would.
Man, some of the weirdest and coolest characters and arcs that happen in the Final Fantasy games, or just the gameplay that they could squeeze out of a controller that only had 4 buttons on it or 6.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to say that there isn't value in those games, because I do play old games sometimes. I'm just saying that, like, if I have to choose between two, I don't tend to go with the older game.
Maybe it's just because I'm inherently cheap.
It could be. It definitely could be. I think you're a little bit more. What's the way to put it? Like, you're a lot choosier with the games that you play than I am.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, if I buy a game, I want it. I'll only buy a game if I know I'm going to put like hundreds of hours into it. I don't want to buy a game that's,
or at least play it through in its entirety.
At the absolute minimum, I have to play the whole thing. Otherwise, why did I pay for it?
Well, I was just thinking of like Gone Home, which is not like a hundreds of hours game.
No, but Gone Home was also like $10.
That's true.
And
that's true.
Like there is a price factor to it.
Oh, totally. There has to be.
Like, I really want to play the Nier Automata game that just recently came out, but it's $80.
Yeah, I'm not paying $80 for it.
No,
I mean, I think it'd be worth it. And if this was a couple of years ago when I didn't have as many expenses and things on the horizon that I'm going to want to pay for, I would totally have done it. But fortunately, I got to pay people for art and stuff.
Yeah, art is expensive.
Yeah,
and I mean, if you're paying tax on a game like that, you're paying upwards of $90, not even including DLC. So it gets pretty costly.
Yeah, for sure. There's a few games that I'm willing to do that for. Like, I'll probably buy Agents of Mayhem day one.
It looks pretty good.
Well, I just, like I love that studio. I love what they do. I'm pretty sure that game's gonna be great.
Did you go and watch the VOD?
I didn't.
Oh, you should absolutely watch it. Like, if you don't mind a little bit of spoileriness, and they're pretty careful about it, it was a great stream. And I'm talking about the Volition, DS Volition on Twitch. They stream every Thursday. Last week they showed off gameplay from their new game, Agents of Mayhem, with a bunch of the developers. The head producer of it, one of the guys there was also the head of the writer's room for the game. So it was interesting to see his input on the system that they have that integrates all the different characters into any given scene, even ones when they would not ordinarily be there because of the order that you would acquire or unlock that character in the game.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
I would love to be in that writer's room.
Yeah, it'd be so cool.
Those guys are crazy.
Oh, and you gotta watch it. The hat that the guy's wearing, he has this purple, like, almost top hat, but with flashing lights.
Oh, it's like oh man.
He looks like a complete lunatic, and you know that there's just people wandering around in the halls there with that shit on.
Well, I was gonna say that's probably like a thing that they have as a promo for Saints Row or something. Like,
oh, it was a Saints purple hat, like bedazzled. I don't think it was actually a promotional product. It was
but it's like something you have in Saints Purple because you work at Volition and this is what you do.
The amount of stuff and like not just objects in their offices that they've shown, but like the times that guests come on and they're just wearing a Saints Row purple shirt or purple something, like that particular tone. It just become part of their office culture.
Yeah, you're like required to wear purple.
I don't think it's at all required. I don't think it is coming from that direction. I think it's going the other way, that they're so into it that they want to look like they're one of the Saints.
Yeah, see, I buy that. I 100% buy that.
They're so enthusiastic about it.
Because they're like one of those studios. Well, I think most studios are like this in general. But they're a studio where they're like, yeah, whatever makes you creative, just do it, sort of thing.
Absolutely. A guy who just recently left the company, Alex Mejia, who was the main video producer, I think that was his title, or video editor. Yeah, so he had an obsession with gaff tape, and so like people would give him just rolls of purple gaff tape, and they showed this crate in his office one time that was just full, like dozens of rolls of gaff tape that he has no use for, but he keeps around just because he's weirdly obsessed with it, and it had kind of become this inside joke.
Well, I mean, if you're a producer, gaff tape always comes in handy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he said those exact words.
Having worked on film sets and done some stuff with that, like gaff tape comes in handy so much. It's like duct tape. It's like film duct tape. Like it's useful for everything and nothing. It just depends on what you need.
There was at least one stream where he was gaff taped to the couch just because it's like, oh, well, I've got all this tape.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So I think that's it for this episode of Input Output, but we will be releasing a part 2 next week. So come back for that.
Yeah, that'll be Easter weekend. So we won't be doing a read-write episode. So instead we'll have our supplemental Input Output.
Bonus Input Output.
All right. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.